In episode number 430 of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, we cover the League of Mayhem Zack Snyder stream.
We also have our thoughts on Johnny Depp resigning from his role of Grindelwald.
We also review As Chosen On By You, much to the dismay of Kelli Punchline number 1.
All of this and so much more on today's show.
Hello and welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I am Deep King Daniel. It's like the filthiest Pokemon game and name we've come across.
Is that a real thing?
The Deep King, yeah.
Where did the Deep King live? I'm very confused.
It's even worse in Japan. When you translate it to Japanese, it's the Bottom King. And then it gets very gay.
Who decided this?
It's from, once again, just like last week, Pokemon Coliseum.
Oh my goodness, I can't breathe.
To those of you new to the show, the way we format it is first we go through some news. We head into our Patreon shoutouts, which are thank yous to those of you who make today's show possible. Go into our comic book review and end it with the Brocat block, which is what Kelli and I have been doing this week.
I'm Kelli, by the way. You didn't let me introduce myself.
Sorry.
I got too distracted by your
Deep King.
By your Bottom King.
Bottom King.
But our first bit of news has to do with one of my favorite actors, Johnny Depp, who has been forced to resign from his role as Grindelwald because of all the nonsense going on with him and Amber Heard.
So there's a lot of back and forth discussion over was he forced or was he asked to resign. I still sit on the camp of it's one of those things where Warner Brothers went, all right, you could either resign or we're going to force you off this project. I think I put it similarly to the way that Zack was also forced off of Justice League, where they said, okay, he's no longer on the project. We're going to put in Joss Whedon, and we're going to tell the public that he had to step away and he was handing over the baton. I think it's the same type of PR thing where they pretty much forced Johnny to no longer be involved in the Grindelwald series. The nice thing that Spoon was actually sharing on our Discord is that because he did film one scene in the new film, he has to be paid 8 figures. Yeah. I don't know if it's his full salary, but he still gets paid quite a bit, which is just, it makes Warner Brothers look like clowns once again. One, for forcing him to resign or asking him to resign, and 2, you're paying the guy plus whoever replaces him.
Depp did post on his Instagram, quote, "I wish to let you know that I have been asked to resign by Warner Brothers for my role as Grindelwald in Fantastic Beasts, and I have respected and agreed to that request," end quote.
Warner Brothers stated through Variety, quote, "Johnny Depp will depart the Fantastic Beasts franchise. We thank Johnny for his work on the films to date. Fantastic Beasts 3 is currently in production and the role of Gellert Grindelwald will be recast. The film will debut in theaters worldwide in the summer of 2022, end quote.
I always dislike when they recast somebody in the middle of a franchise. I don't think it ever looks, unless it's a situation like they had to do with Dumbledore, where they just could not get the guy to come back, right? Obviously. So yeah, I don't know that I think this is a smart move. I think the thing that's most frustrated is Amber Heard hasn't been asked to resign.
Right.
And she is, I think, just as much, and even if you want to have doubt on either side, fine, because I know a lot of it is a he said, she said, but she's causing just as much drama with this Johnny Depp thing as he is. Like, it's not fair.
I know with the fan base, especially right now, they are very much on Depp's side. It is an anti-Amber Heard type of movement, especially after the latest tapes had come out, some of which were her saying things like, no one would believe you if you were saying that you were the one that was the victim. Some really nasty stuff that's been recorded from both sides. Both people have come out in this very toxic relationship and all this suing that's happening between the two. But yeah, I do think if you're going to ask Johnny Depp to resign his role, I think that the other side is just as negative from Amber Heard's, and you should also recast her from Aquaman 2. And the fan base that Johnny Depp has, which is a massive one, has been very much like we were with Release the Snyder Cut. They've been saying hashtag justice for Johnny Depp, hashtag fire Amber Heard in every single one of their posts. And they've actually also kind of come forward to the Snyder Cut movement and asked us to also support that and kind of tweet against it. You know, I think we as a movement are more focused on campaigns like the latest Darkseid t-shirt design, which we're going to cover, but this is probably the right thing on their end to do is to, yes, social media works, tweets work. If you want to see that happen to Amber as well, and it's only fair to both if they're both not working for Warner Brothers, which I'm on that side too, then yeah, tweets are going to do the job.
I think I saw somewhere that there's a petition going around to get her fired or whatever, and it was up to like 1 million signatures, which is pretty significant.
I'm still holding out hope that they'll eventually bring him back into the production. I don't know how far along they are on Fantastic Beasts 3. It could be that they're already filming it and that's not going to happen. The latest rumor of Colin Farrell returning from the first Fantastic Beasts and taking it over from there has kind of been shut down as his shooting schedule is ridiculous, so he wouldn't be able to regardless, especially with the Batman right now filming too. So if they were going to not bring back Johnny Depp, they would have to replace him with an actor that also has a massive following. It's going to cost them quite a bit, and that would probably be the best because then you would bring in an opposite fan base who you would hope wouldn't go, no, let's not support that and have our actor that we like on there. Let's let Johnny have justice for himself, which I don't think would happen.
They should replace him with Liam Neeson.
Does he have enough teenage fan base?
I would be there. But I'm all that matters.
I would fucking be there to see Liam Neeson as the villain once again. He did an amazing job as Ra's, or Ra's as they called him in Batman Begins. That's a great pick right there. You could also do, if you really wanted to, there's always you could take the Parnassus. What was that? Parnassus of the very last Heath Ledger film that he never finished. And then they had Johnny Depp in there.
I know what you're talking about, but I never saw anything about it because it was, 2008, 2010? So it was a very long... I don't know what happened yesterday.
Well, I was going to say, well, you can't have Johnny Depp already, but someone like that, maybe Jared Leto if he's everywhere already anyway. But I think in the end, we do want Johnny Depp to still retain that work, to still get those big roles, which I think Fantastic Beasts could have been that for him, especially with 4 more movies or whatever they were doing. They were going to have him maybe hold hands and kiss with Dumbledore at some point in the future. Old man Dumbledore and Grindelwald hugging and kissing on the big screen. Johnny Depp. Can you imagine that, Johnny Depp doing that?
I mean, I think Johnny Depp just needs money now. So he's going to do whatever.
I wish them the best, and I hope Warner Brothers does the right thing with their track record so far, though. I don't think they're that interested in it. They're going to move forward, they're going to recast, and it's a shame. But hopefully things work out for Johnny, and I think everyone will be watching that very closely. I know we as a fan base should, once they start Aquaman 2, start rallying against having Amber Heard on there. I don't think she'd be a massive loss. I don't know if she's doing any additional photography for the Snyder Cut. I don't think she is, but I'm okay with them not using her again in the future DC films.
I think she's a little easier to recast too, because I don't think her face is that recognizable, really, comparatively to Johnny Depp.
Plus, her role wasn't that impactful, honestly. People were taught you love the relationship between the two characters and you thought their chemistry was good, but it's not on the level of a villain like Johnny Depp's was in the last film. It's a bigger loss to recast Johnny Depp than it is to recast Amber Heard. I don't care how much fucking money Aquaman 1 made. She's not the reason it made $1 billion.
No way. It was definitely Aquaman.
Through more Warner Media synergy happening here, positive ones this time, through all of its programming, they will be running what they're calling Thanksgiving to the HBO Max from November 26th through November 29th. I like it. It's a great name. I think this is a great move. I
don't know who came up with that name, but give them a raise because that's fucking brilliant. Thanksgiving to the Max. Ooh, the HBO Max.
Ooh. So what is happening? What are they doing here? How is this? Is this smart? Is this not?
On TNT, TBS, and True TV, Warner will be giving TV viewers a taste of HBO Max's original programming and blockbuster movies, along with a free week of HBO Max to help fill their slots for that weekend.
General Manager of TNT, TBS, and True TV, Brett White, said, quote, Thanksgiving to the HBO Max is an excellent demonstration of the powerful synergies that are possible at Warner Media. With so many of us spending time in front of the television after Thanksgiving dinner and leftovers on top of leftovers, it's wonderful that we get to offer free trials of HBO Max and present some of their incredible originals to the audience of our 3 linear networks, end quote. So taking all of those originals, putting them on TV, what are your thoughts?
I think that's brilliant. Absolutely. Exactly like they said, there's so many people who you finish Thanksgiving dinner or Thanksgiving lunch or whatever, and you sit in front of the TV. I think we've talked about it before. My family used to go to the movies, right? You do something as a family where you're not really doing something. So I think that it is a perfect marketing strategy. It's great to offer it at that time. People who are watching those TV channels are going to get to see an original and say, oh, hey, what is this? And I'm sure there'll be commercials throughout that say, finish the series on HBO Max, right? Free trial for the next week. And they're definitely going to get a lot of people who sign on. And I think they're going to retain a good amount of those people as well.
I know some of the stuff they're also airing are movies that are currently at that time going to be available on HBO Max. So it's not just going to be TV or original program. It's also going to be films that are obviously commercial filled, but they're going to have on there, as you mentioned, available to stream right now on HBO Max. Here's your trial. I think it's a smart move, especially with things they already are using.
I also just think Thanksgiving to the HBO Max is just a brilliant.
I need to see that logo. I really do.
Yes, it's going to be so good. I hope it's like a cool turkey with like a gun or something. With flames.
So, flamethrower.
Sure. Whatever. Just make the turkey a badass. It's perfect.
We got some convention updates this week as well, with our first 2 major conventions of 2021, which were Emerald City Comic-Con and C2E2. Both have announced that they are postponing until the end of 2021.
C2E2 was initially planned for March 2021. It is moving to December 2021.
Lance Fensterman, president of ReedPop, said, quote, "We're ready to look forward to 2021 and geared up to bring you the best slate of Comic-Con events possible, both in the real and virtual world," end quote.
At this time, New York Comic-Con has not announced any 2021 dates, which is probably smart.
I think this is a bigger indicator than most are guessing. I know a lot of conventions, there's already a list online of tons of cons that this year said, we'll see you next year at this date. And they had already set up their dates throughout next year, not just late next year, but early. And I think if these major conventions like C2E2 or ReedPop that own a bunch of these conventions are already backing up to the end of next year, I don't think we're going to get any big conventions anytime soon.
I definitely agree with that. I think back when conventions made this decision, none of us thought that we would still be in the state that we're in November, right? I remember I saw a tweet the other day that says the biggest lie I told myself in 2020 was that this would all be over in 6 weeks. And here we are, right? 7 months later. So I think that they're doing it from a safety perspective, sure, because not only will this still be going on, but I think there's going to be a lot of people who won't be comfortable going into a crowd that big, that early in the year. Coming right off the heels of that, you're going to need several months after this is all done before they're comfortable. So, they're looking at it from a business perspective, from a safety perspective. I think it's smart. Do I want, I had a dream about a convention the other night. So obviously I want to get back into a convention and see these cool costumes and see all these different things. And it's unfortunate that this is the way that, at least this country still is, where we aren't anywhere close to being back to normal, because I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
Lazy Gaming Guys last night were saying that until regular places no longer require face masks, masks such as Publix or grocery stores, I should say, not every place has a Publix.
People are like, pub, what? You guys go to a pub down there at a grocery store?
Once those places no longer require it, that's when we'll probably start seeing regular conventions again. And even when we start seeing that, I wouldn't be shocked if they would, quote unquote, limit the amount of people going in, which I don't think would even be needed anyway. Like you said, most are not going to be, a large chunk are not going to be comfortable going into a convention, especially if COVID is still in the news.
I wouldn't be surprised, though, if they do limit them, because, there's going to be a lot of people not comfortable, but there's still, a great example that I can give is Disney Springs down here in Florida. It's back to normal, right? People are not social distancing. We haven't gone ourselves, but I have a lot of friends who have gone, and they said, you'd never think anything was going on with how many people are there. So there will still be enough people that want to go that I could see limiting, or I could see maybe having different time slots on the day that you're allowed to go. Okay, so your ticket is for these 6 hours, expanding the convention hours so that you're able to fit people in different time slots. I could see something along the lines of that. But I definitely don't think it'll be a free-for-all, even when, maybe December next year when it is allowed.
Do you think panels as well are no longer going to be like a physical thing? Do you think they'll just do them virtually like they have this year?
I think they'll at least get back to the point where they're a physical thing again, but I do think it'll be distanced. I think there'll be one chair in between every person when, you go back, at least for the first convention, right? And then once everything gets back to normal, then sure, we can all crowd in. But I mean, think about those convention rooms, right? Those panel halls. How many people are shoved in there and standing against the wall and blocking exits? And it's a fire hazard for sure. But yes, as things get back to normal, I could definitely see different safety precautions within that. But maybe that means that they have more panels available, right? And you could go in different times, and they're asking a little bit more of their guests, but at the same time, how many guests are going to want to go either, right? Because now they're putting themselves at risk for people who are going to say, well, I'm not feeling well, but I'm still going to go because I want to see this artist.
My favorite comment still is the way to defeat COVID is to open up conventions, because no one has herd immunity quite like convention goers. They're the ones who always are immune to all the diseases.
Oh, yes, that is
They're
true.
always going to get sick with whatever little thing that they didn't catch. But if you're a convention goer, if you're someone like setting up the panels, someone that has a Funko booth that is traveling throughout the country, they probably have the best herd immunity out of anyone in this country at this point. Maybe airport workers, but I thought that was funny. But no, that'd be a quick way to really spread that virus, is to open up a convention.
Oh my God. It gets spread everywhere, right? You see, I'm sure a bunch of people caught it from Halloween that started spiking again because everybody went out on Halloween and,
Don't forget the rallies, the election rallies on all sides. Everyone gathering forward.
Right. Everyone did.
Suddenly everyone was a lot less worried about this disease,
right.
Of course. Unfortunately, this past week, we did get more layoffs from Disney and AT&T. First off, Disney has started to lay off staff members at Marvel Comics. So before that, they were obviously laying off a ton of people from the parks and all of the other things they own, like ESPN. But now it's affecting Marvel Comics. John Nee, who is the publisher, and Judy Stevens, who was a producer, both got let go.
Judy tweeted, quote, "Marvel and I said goodbye today. I'm working through my emotions as I mourn my career over the last 14 years, end quote.
Searchlight has also recently received layoffs from Disney, and there have been more from ESPN as well.
Before I get super angry and be like, Marvel, Warner Brothers has also done a lot of layoffs that were affecting staffers from DC Comics this week as well. But Marvel.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of these news outlets like Bleeding Cool and Newsarama, when AT&T Warner Brothers were doing their layoffs at DC, they were quick to say that DC was doomed, that they're over, they're no longer publishing comics, they're going to have other publishers like IDW handle their characters, and they're going to make their comic books. But as soon as Marvel does the exact same thing, then it's no longer spun in that way of Marvel is doomed. And Spoon pointed out in our Discord, we're a news outlet, we can spin it that way, so let's fucking spin it that way. Marvel is doomed, they're going to continue to license, they're already licensing their characters out to IDW, so they're going to continue to do that. IDW, you heard it here first, is probably going to start doing all of their Spider-Man comics. Same with Boom Studios, anyone who wants them. Marvel is done for after all these layoffs. Sad. What a shame.
Sad. Beyond this, though, and I know it's not in the news and not really related to comics, but Disneyland has also started another round of furloughs and layoffs. And I think Walt Disney World just did another round as well. So definitely on all sides, Disney's doomed. Everything said the parks are going to close too. Everything is doomed.
For anyone waiting on those Wonder Woman 1984 variants, DC has informed retailers that they've been delayed yet again to sometime in 2021.
A DC statement to retailers reads, quote, Wonder Woman 1984 variant covers are moving to 2021 to align with Wonder Woman's 80th anniversary year, end quote.
Do you think that this means that the film is also going to be pushed to next year?
Potentially. I think that they are prepping for that. At this point, I just don't think it's easy from a timing standpoint to line up the two of these things. I really don't, because anything could change at the drop of a hat, right? Wonder Woman could get pushed back. Wonder Woman could stay where it is. And by committing to having these there's so much planning that goes into it behind it that at this point it's just not feasible to say, yes, we can line these two up accurately to make sure that they both come out at the same time. You just can't do it. So I don't think that this is the wrong move, right? They're lining it up with our 80th anniversary year. If the movie's great, they'll still be popular. People are going to pick it up just because it's a variant, right? So I don't think they're going to lose that much business by not having them come out at the same time, if that's what happens.
I keep featuring these in our new comic book day group, and I get some pre-orders, but it's one of those things where I'm seeing the number of people that are trying to get these variants, and it's not huge. It's not a large number. And to be honest with you, when they end up releasing these, they did it with BVS, I think. They didn't move like crazy when they were on the stand. So I think DC should just put them out when they put them out. The Funko Pops have already released. A bunch of merch for 1984 has already come out. The comics are not going to make a huge dent in the industry. When they eventually bring them out next year, the numbers, I guarantee you, won't be significantly larger from retailers. In fact, most readers won't care anymore. They'll say, why do I pre-order this if it's never going to come out or it's probably going to get delayed again? And by the time they release, the casual moviegoers are not going to look at those covers and go, let me get that 1984 variant because I like the movie. They know that the comic has nothing to do with the film. Just release the variants and let them be done. They're already finished.
Are they cool looking variants at least?
They're fine. The Adam Hughes one, I think, is all right. Also, the Artgerm one, which is basically an exact recreation of one of the posters. They're okay, but I think those are maybe I got the Adam Hughes one. Maybe I got the Artgerm one. They're your standard type of, this is Gal Gadot as drawn by this artist. Nothing insane.
All right. Well, DC, then you dropped the ball. They're doomed.
Well, I will tell you something they are doing that I'm not a fan of. While other publishers are doing foil covers, exclusive variants to support local comic shop day, DC will be sending comic shops a one per store foil variant of the DC Future State catalog.
DC's doomed. For those of you who don't know, local comic shop day will take place the Wednesday before Thanksgiving this year. So the day before Thanksgiving.
Some of these local comic shop day variants from the other publishers like Boom, IDW, Image have been getting attention online, especially on Twitter, as the artists share those covers. And then from there, I get those tweet screenshots on the shop saying, I want this cover, I want that cover, which is great. DC doing a fucking catalog in foil cover. It didn't surprise me, didn't shock me. They're in the middle of a power transition here with the new head of publishing right now on DC, so they probably had very little planned for local comic shop day, and with what they've been doing with their comics and two retailers, that doesn't surprise me at all. I honestly didn't even expect this. Yes, this little catalog will be going for quite a bit because it's a one per store, but it's nothing amazing either. It's not going to be something that we can definitely sell to our regulars or subscribers and say, this is a special cover for local comic shop day. We ordered 10 of them. Have at it. No, it's it's on the wall. Let's see who wants to spend that money. It's a shame. I don't think it's cool.
Yeah, it doesn't help comic shops. It doesn't help readers. It doesn't help, people who like you who are very much into the art and like to collect these things and go back and look at them. Like nobody really benefits from this except for somebody who's like, well, let me collect it because it's rare.
A couple of characters that are going to be returning on the DC Universe side of comic books, Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Harper Row and Cullen Row are going to resurface in James Tynion's Batman run. We did already see them in the Punchline one-shot that we are going to be reviewing in just a bit here, but we do have a quote from Tynion through the Empire of the Tiny Onion newsletter.
He said, quote, "It wasn't until we started talking about doing a solo Punchline story that I realized that Punchline is, in a lot of ways, a perfect reflection of Harper Row. She's another ordinary kid of Gotham, but rather than her being drawn to the idea of Batman, she was drawn to the idea of Joker. And now she's out there trying to spread the Joker's ideology, and we're going to see Harper watch that happen up close, helpless to push back against it," end quote.
I really liked Harper Row when we did see her in Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder's Batman run. It's a character that is absolutely underutilized right now, and I hope that we do see some great stuff on the Batman run. I honestly thought they were completely forgotten at that point. And back when she was releasing and we had seen her design, there was a lot of blue and black to her. Something had happened to Dick Grayson. He was just Grayson at that point from Tom King's run. So a lot of us suspected that she was going to be the new Nightwing, but she instead was this different character called Bluebird.
I remember liking her way back when she was actually in the books. But I have to be honest, I don't remember a lot about her. So I think it's great that they're bringing her back. I do remember kind of that relationship with her and her brother and really being invested in that. But it was, I can't even tell you how many years ago. I'm sure you remember, but it was a really long time since we've seen these characters.
I think it's been like 6 to 4 years since we've really seen them in the spotlight at least. But something else that is coming back is the 3 Jokers of all things. According to Bleeding Cool, Jeff Johns and Jason Fabok are returning for a one-shot sequel to it next year.
That's really interesting. What else can they do with it? I don't know. Maybe there's another Joker that was created. Ooh.
People have been joking like, now we're going to get the 3 Two-Faces or the 4th Joker. I think it's going to be more like that Smile Killer shot that we had gotten from DC Black Label, where it's just wrapping up all of the little loose ends. I don't think it's going to be anything insane, especially since it's not a full-on miniseries. It probably won't even be necessarily a sequel. It'll probably take place sometime in between all of these issues, maybe a little bit more between Jason Todd and Barbara.
Oh my God, no, please,
not.
Never again.
But it does not surprise me seeing as how well the 3 Jokers did.
Doesn't surprise me either. It did seem like the book did extremely well and that it was received. Like I said, I liked it better than I thought I would. So yeah, I don't think it's out of line to say, okay, let's tie up all these little pieces. Let's tell this extra little side story, because nobody can believe that what you see in a book, the artist or the writer doesn't have so much more of a story planned. Like 100% of the time. There's always more that they could have told, and this is what they're limited to.
What do you say to people who are already saying, there they go again, milking the Joker for everything he's got?
And I'm going to say, and you're going to buy it.
Everyone keeps fucking buying it. I will tell you from personal experience, we sold so many copies of Batman, the 3 Jokers. So yes, give me another 12 issues of Batman, the 3 Jokers. Give me another, if you just publish Batman and Joker as all your full line of comic books, DC, you'll be just fine. Trust me. People will whine and bitch about it, but they'll be swooping up every single one of them.
And they'll go, oh, this was so good, but I don't like it.
But I wish they'd give Poison Ivy her own. Why?
Yeah,
Why?
But I won't buy Poison Ivy. I just wish they would.
Exactly right. And that's exactly what happens. They publish what moves. They publish what sells. 3 Jokers sold extremely well, and so will this one shot.
Of course, this wouldn't be an episode of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast without some Snyder news.
During a League of Mayhem stream with the Nerd Queens, Zack Snyder revealed that he has a story for Darkseid that goes past the Snyder Cut.
He said, quote, "It's a fair question to ask me. Like, what do I say to the world about, what happens when Darkseid comes to Earth? Then what? Is that a thing? And I think, listen, the truth is that did I write and did I have and conceive a complete... This is such an awkward man. Is this how he really talks?
This is how he was talking. It's quoted.
Do I know what happens when Darkseid? Yes, I do know what happens. To say and to speculate about what that is, and that it would be exciting. I think that's a fine thing." End quote.
I'm sure a lot of that was him trying not to directly say, yes, we have more planned with Darkseid, with Ray Porter, with Justice League, without actually saying it. I'm sure that even though a lot of us already suspect we're probably going to get that Batfleck extra story, we're going to get Justice League 2 and 3, until that actually comes out on HBO Max, that's probably when they want to do a proper announcement. They want to look at the numbers. They want to see all of those things. But this tells me that, yes, there's a ton planned already with Darkseid. He obviously planned far ahead. We knew the 5-film plan was already in place, and I'm sure he's sticking relatively close to that.
Yeah, but he could have said that so differently. Not only so I could read it more easily, but also, and again, going back to my previous point, anybody who creates, they always have more. There is always more in their brain. And so he could have just said, yeah, I totally had, 5 films planned out. Of course I know what happens afterwards. Of course I know what the Earth would be like when Darkseid left. Because in my universe, I have years planned in advance. He didn't have to, skirt around the subject of maybe we will, maybe we won't. And I'm sure that was, a Snyder plan to do that.
Could have been,
give us some hope. But, I mean, of course, if you don't think that this man has literally everybody's full life planned out, then you don't know Snyder.
And with this news of Darkseid, they also made available, like I mentioned earlier, a Darkseid AFSP, all proceeds going to, as I mentioned, suicide prevention. And you get a sort of finalized look at not Uxas as we saw in the Snyder Cut trailer, but at Darkseid himself. And it is going to be based on what he'll look like, at least by the end of the Snyder Cut.
During the stream, he also revealed artwork for Martian Manhunter as he appears in the film.
Harry Lennox's General Swanwick is believed to be playing John Jones. Aside from the storyboard that we got from Zack, where you can kind of see a more traditional Martian Manhunter, this is the actual first look at what he looks like in the film, which still does look like your traditional Martian Manhunter. His head shape is a little bit different towards the top than what you saw in that sketch. But otherwise, he's got the costume, he's got the cape, he has the red X. It looks cool, and I can't wait until we get a very clear shot of him.
I am living for me some John Jones.
Speculating on the Manhunter, do you think he is more or less still keeping himself secret to the League because he doesn't know yet if they are really for the greater good? When you saw him in Man of Steel, he's probably in the same boat as what Batman was at the beginning of BVS of, are these aliens going to destroy this Earth? Should I come out and start fighting these aliens as well?
Probably. I always feel like John Jones is more mature than everybody else. And he's just like, I'm just going to watch how this plays out, right? I'm here if I need to step in. But he also understands that for him to step in, it has to be really dire, because once he does that, there's no going back. And let's say that, he feels that the Justice League is there for the greater good. There's no saying that the Justice League will feel he's there for the greater good. So is it worth him to come forth and be like, I've been here for years, watching your planet, making sure y'all doing the right thing, and I want to help. And they could be like, oh no, we don't know who you are, let's fight you, right? And then it's a whole thing. Then it's more trouble than it's worth almost. And then potentially he loses the place of where he is, right? Because okay, you join the Justice League, now you can't be General Swanson or whatever, Swanwick, working for the U.S. government, because how are you going to split your time that way? It just becomes very challenging. And I'm sure he put himself strategically in this place for a reason. And to give that up, like I said, almost might be more trouble than it's worth.
The other story that really set Twitter ablaze is that Zack also revealed during the stream that his story for Batfleck would have involved a divorced Batman and Catwoman eventually reuniting after a rocky history and years of separation.
Yes!
We would get our first look at married Batman and Catwoman on the big screen. Well, divorced, I guess, but
yes, I'm so here for it. That's all that I want. Zack Snyder just fulfilled all my dreams.
When I had first seen the tweets of this, they, a divorced Batman and Catwoman, I'm like, oh, and then Talia maybe, and then he's like, but then they reunite after many years, and I'm like, oh, all right, well, this goes back to that whole Batfleck's story arc of healing over time, and that started with BVS. Him understanding that he had become Joe Chill after all of these years, and he could now continue on that path of Batman, which would be represented by Kelli being the second Robin after Dick Grayson had gotten killed by the Joker. I don't know if we revealed that here, maybe we did, but about Jared Leto's Joker killing Dick Grayson Batman, burning his body, and how it may or may not have taken place at Wayne Manor, since we see that Wayne Manor is also burned down in BVS. But I think that would also be a start of his healing of, okay, he can move on, he can have another Robin, he can have this communication or the start of another relationship again with his ex-wife. And I think that it would require a more mature Catwoman as well, as we see with Ben Affleck's Batman. And he talked about the casting that he would want as Catwoman.
He said, quote, "Probably I would say Carla Gugino's Catwoman is perfect. You would have to say there's a flashback to 10 years ago where they were a thing, and then he had to arrest her. I don't know what happened. You know what happened. Or he had to let her go, and it tweaked him. And now, who knows what she's doing now? She's running some sort of international antiquities or something, and he needs to retire, and they find each other. Yeah, I do think Carla is, yeah, she's good, end quote.
Carla recently starred in Netflix's The Haunting of Hill House, and she responded on Twitter to the stream with, quote, "Bring it," end quote.
I'm for it. Bring it. Just do a Batman Catwoman romance, Snyder. Like, yeah, you can have action and other things, but just a romance.
And I think that's the project that Ben Affleck would have. That's the script that we would have had, that Ben Affleck would have directed and starred in. I think we would have seen a lot of Catwoman. We would obviously have seen Deathstroke. And there's already a backstory there. He's talking about needing to arrest her or letting her go. Where she works now, he knows where that story is. He knows what that Affleck script was. And I think the reason why we're not getting full details is because we're going to see that happen. With Carla going on Twitter and saying, let's do it, bring it, I think that's also setting fire to it all, with us going, all right, well, me personally going, once again, I don't need the Pattinson universe. I don't need that Batman and Catwoman. We're already getting it right here. This is the universe I want to see more of. I want to see a married or divorced Batman-Catwoman relationship. I don't need to see what they're building up for what is generally not aimed at me. They're aiming at a younger audience, and this is perfect for me. I get to choose, and this sounds incredible.
I would be so excited if this happens. I do think it, at almost any stage, especially in their younger years of Batman and Catwoman, it's not unrealistic to say, yeah, they get divorced at some point. Like, they are not in who they are right now, right, in the comics, and literally everything that we've ever seen them in, neither of them are really in a place where they could sustain a relationship long term. Because, yeah, you're going to try really hard, and at some point it's going to get really hard, especially for them, and they would just be like, you know what, I think this is best to separate. But the fact that they're older and Batman's retired, and he's like, let me settle down. Like, yes, make it happen. Like I said, just make it a romance. Like, don't, you can throw in other things. You can make it manly or whatever. But yes, a Batman Catwoman romance, I would just die. I would be so happy.
Are you on the camp as well of the death of Robin helped set all of this forward of no longer needing another Robin, going harder on criminals, branding them, maybe wanting to focus on just being Batman, so letting that relationship between him and Catwoman go? Do you think that was the start of it, Joker getting to Dick Grayson?
Oh, for sure. I don't see why it wouldn't be, because as much as, you know, maybe people try to argue it, I really genuinely think he sees Dick Grayson as a son, and maybe he's not, you know, this typical father figure that you would think of. Maybe he's a harsher father. You could argue, oh, well, he's just adopted. No, that's his family. That's his kid. And yeah, I mean, you as a dad, right? Imagine something happened. You can't. Like, you can't even think about it without having a mild panic attack.
Right.
And so I definitely think that that's part of it. But at the same time, if he was married to Catwoman, it's not unlikely to think that Catwoman saw Dick Grayson as her son too, right? And definitely someone that she was close to. And so for her to lose him, you have to think of the ramifications on her too, and how much of it is her looking at Batman and saying, because of your actions as Batman, because you're doing these things, this is why this happened. And her mindset might have been, I need to retire and go run international antiquities, and his is, I need to go harder as Batman. And that's not something as a couple that you really work through. Oh, I just wrote the whole movie. Oh my God, I'm so great.
And I don't know if they would have explored this at all, but the fact that you brought up that, yeah, it does seem like a more father-son relationship between Dick Grayson and Batman. And I know a lot of people say brother to brother. I don't see it that way. I would instead look at like maybe Jason and Dick as more brother and brother than Batman and Dick Grayson. But if we were to get that Flashpoint original plan, I would have loved to have seen that interaction. And I don't know if we would have. Maybe it would have been like the comic where the Flash brings him a letter from his father that rocks him to tears, which is fine on its own and it's done incredibly well. But if we were to ever see these characters interact, father and son, and talk about the death of Dick Grayson, to talk about his son's death, both Batman would relate to each other in losing a son at some point in their Batman career, or at least at some point in their lives. And that on its own, you can do so much with.
Well, and not only that, they would relate in the fact that they lost a son and became more Batman and started killing because of it.
That's
because
true.
Realistically, did Batfleck kill before this?
We
Probably
don't know
not.
yet. Yeah.
Right. So now I'm really stuck on this romance story, right? Screw the stuff with his son and that's all great, right? But what do you think would bring them back together? Would Batman say, yes, I need to go like repair this relationship? Would they just stumble across each other? Is Santa involved?
That's not for me to write. I don't know that romance. I don't know that relationship. I think we would need to see the full Batfleck story before we get a resolution to how they got back together.
So this has to happen in my lifetime. If I don't get a Batman Catwoman romance at least some point on the big screen in my lifetime, I will revolt. I will not die until I'm going to be like 700 years old. Like, I'm just waiting.
How do you feel about the casting of Carla?
I think that would be great. I really liked her in Watchmen. I haven't seen her in much after that. But listen, if Snyder's involved, if Ben Affleck's it, like, it's going to be great.
Are we reading the stars and seeing the coordinates of Snyder by him confirming Batfleck tales and Batfleck plot points? Do you think he's hinting that we are going to get that Ben Affleck series or that movie?
No, I really don't. I think he's telling us it's written, right? It's a script. It's completed. It's somewhere. So maybe at some point in the future we will get this. But I don't necessarily think we cannot say that everything that that Snyder says is just going to happen, because we don't know, especially with the shakeups at HBO, right? If it was like 3 months ago and they hadn't taken down the trailer and all these other speculations, then sure, I would say, yes, this is a strong probability. But right now, I don't know that we can say definitively.
Him at all speaking about the future of the DCEU or the Snyderverse, it's got to be a positive thing, though. It can't just be this is what would have happened. We're literally getting the Snyder Cut. He's doing additional photography for it. I think it means that he's at least planting those seeds for those future projects. I think he's so much on the side of it's not happening.
I think he's planting the seeds for sure, and it's just going to depend if the studio wants to do it or not. I think it's all really going to boil down to how well Zack Snyder's Justice League does when it releases, right? How are Blu-ray sales? How many subscribers do you get? How many lasting subscribers do you get? I think those are all going to play a really big part in whether this continues forward. But once again, like we said, HBO would be idiots to let Snyder go, because he does have this strong fan base, because of the work that he puts out. Because even if you say, okay, we're going to fund 3 or 4 more movies for you, and now you're going to do our stuff, then yeah, you still come out winning, because you're just going to have this big name behind your company. And you let him go, and Netflix is going to scoop him up so fast. And don't even pretend that they're not, because Netflix is not stupid.
Did any of your interests change at this news or at this story on the Matt Reeves' The Batman?
Yeah, I mean, I guess a little bit. I don't know that I've seen enough of Matt Reeves' Batman, but the trailer that I saw of it, I wasn't interested. It's not for me. I know that I am not, like, everybody's like, oh, it's such a good trailer. And I'm like, he looks dirty all the time.
Dirty.
And his hair is not good. Like, that's what I base it on, right? So I don't think we're the audience for it. So I don't know that anything really would change my perception, because again, I'm not the audience. It's not meant for me.
That does round out for an awesome week of news, I think. We got a little bit of everything from the comic side, from the Snyderverse. Let's head into our thank yous to those of you who make today's show possible. It is our Patreon shoutouts.
Our first shout out comes from Elizabeth at EP Lifts.
She tweeted, quote, "Update. For the 4th grader in my class that loves reading but family can't afford books and Superman, I bought him Superman Adventures by @Mr. Mark Miller. The look on his face when he said, 'Really? I can take it home and it's all mine? I kind of feel like a superhero today.' End quote."
Just to make it an even more feel-good story, @Mr. Mark Miller tweeted back, quote, "Shoot me school details and I'll have the office put together a little package for him on Monday. Thanks again." End quote.
The great Mark Miller, who wrote Superman Red Son, my favorite DC comic of all time. And on top of that, as we already have seen on Twitter, he is an awesome guy. Huge thanks to Mark Miller, the offices, for putting that together. But most importantly to Elizabeth, who took that initiative for this 4th grader. I remember when she asked Twitter what good Superman comics anyone would suggest for younger readers. And I love seeing this update. I love that she put that out on Twitter and that she's getting some support from Mark Miller.
It's just exactly like a superhero, right? Makes such a big difference in that kid's life. And Mark Miller even going a step further, he's not ever going to forget this moment.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. We have the greatest of listeners or Brocat Core, whatever. It's the best contacts, the best friends. We have it right here. And any member that is a part of the Brocat Core, or follow every single person that we mention on the podcast each week, because they are all awesome. Next shout out this week goes out to Nick F. on Twitter at Jersey Whisperer, on Instagram at Buzz_Bros_and_superheroes.
On the latest episode of Buds, Bros, and Superheroes, they reviewed Hellboy
by the great Guillermo del Toro.
Guillermo. It's a $17 million project, all in special effects, practical effects. I do not
Guillermo.
pay actors. I just make practical effects.
Every week they're going through and watching a different superhero movie. Nick is more, he's deep into all the superhero stuff, so he's kind of introducing these movies to his co-host for the first time. These are movies that he hadn't seen before, and Big Body Biggs for the first time saw The Dark Knight and did not care for it.
Oh.
And so it was like one of those things where they had watched a couple of MCU movies, which he didn't like, and I was like, yes. And then there was another, I think it was Green Lantern, that he did enjoy, and I'm like, oh, he's more of a DC guy. And then they played The Dark Knight, which most people love, and he didn't like it. That's when I was like on Instagram, he was the chosen one. What is happening?
You pull us Tyra Banks. We believed in you. We all believed in you.
That's right. We did. But it's a great podcast. Make sure to check it out.
Our last shout out of the week goes out to Julian W. on Twitter at Kage023 and at Lazy Gaming Guys.
Julian tweeted his man crushes this year, which included Peony from Pokemon Sword and Shield's Crown Tundra, Abel from Street Fighter 4, and Cletus the NFL robot.
I looked up all of these. No.
Not for you?
All of them. Every single. No.
He just went for the buff. He likes the really buff guys.
I get that, but one's like a robot.
He has a thing for robots.
The Street Fighter guy is just not attractive.
I didn't expect him, yeah.
Like, maybe Peony, but even still, I'm like, you look like you haven't bathed in a few days, so no.
I'm sure Zangief still ranks higher on his list over the other Street Fighter guy. But yeah, that's not a list I expected. And I'm glad he gave it to me and tweeted it out, because now I can make memes out of it. And I have. So instead of Cynthia from Pokemon, like most people like her, and nope, he likes Peony, and it's just so much fun making those. It was tough making one for the NFL robot, because it's like, all right, and then I'm like, what the hell did I do for this? And that's when Scott's like, I guess the cheerleaders, and I'm like, yeah, all right. I couldn't think of like a universally loved robot that, or even less like an NFL robot that people are like, oh, I kind of like that one.
No, and the NFL robot hasn't been on TV in forever, right? It's been a really long time.
I don't remember the NFL robots at all.
I mean, my dad watches a lot of football, so I do remember him, but it's been a really long time since I've seen him around. So not on my list, any of them. No. Mm-mm.
Well, you got to remember, this is the same guy that loves King Triton from Little Mermaid, so there you go.
I think the thing that's confusing for me is he doesn't have, like, yes, they're all buff, but it's not a standardized type. Right? So, like, if you talk to me, right, I like dark hair, dark eyes. I mean, obviously, look at you. Here we are. And, like, if it's a media, like assholes, like Vegeta, right? So, very standardized type. Most people are like that, but this one's a robot and a blonde guy and a grandpa and a baldy, and I'm just
Nappa, right?
Very, very confused.
Some have beards, some don't.
Right. It's not a standard. He just loves everyone, I guess.
I guess so. I'd have to ask him if he likes Nappa post haircut or pre haircut. Remember when he had that little bit of mohawk thing going? I'd be curious to know.
Listen, I don't know. I'm confused. We got to move on. I'm stressing myself out.
Huge thanks once again to Julian, Nick, and Elizabeth for your Patreon support this month. If you too would like your Patreon shout out, head on over to patreon.com/thereasonsimBroke. There's also a link on our website and in the description of today's episode. For as little as $1 a month, that equals to 25 cents an episode. You too can get your shout out, and you help support the podcast for Palpa, Kelly, and I, and the rest of the Brocat Core.
But of course, our show will always be free. The best thing you can do is let other people know about us. We got Black Friday coming up. People are going to get a lot of really cool devices. They're going to say, hey, what podcast should I listen to? Boom. Here you go. Word of mouth is the best way to get our show out there.
If people are asking you, what would you like for the holidays, and you are struggling to find that thing, point them on over to one of our cool t-shirts or mugs or pins. TheReasonsI'mBroke.com. Just click on merch and you will find all of our different designs. If you're going to order from our TeePublic store or anywhere online, really, I'd give you the suggestion of ordering no later than this month because of everything that's happening with USPS deliveries. More people are getting stuff delivered at home. And yes, they have since bulked up their warehouses and their staff, but that does not mean that I think it's going to be a fucking mess this holiday season.
Oh, absolutely.
I think there's going to be a lot of gifts that are going to be late. So order it earlier, get your gifts early, shop local when you can.
We try every single year to do our Christmas shopping before Thanksgiving. So now we're down to less than 3 weeks, guys. So definitely recommend as early as possible get those things done.
Let's head into our comic book highlight for the week, as voted on by you.
Because you all hate me, you picked Punchline number 1. This is written by James Tynion IV and Sam Johns with art by Mirka Andolfo, and the colors is Romulo Fajardo Jr. This sounds like many Star Trek people put together.
A little bit. The Romulos.
The Romulos Fajardos. It's Fajardo, I've decided. Like the Ferengis.
Right.
See? Perfect.
Second place was Sonic the Hedgehog. Of course it was.
Of course
you said
it
last
was.
week. And what's funny is last week I was joking about Punchline or Sonic, and I'm like, no, but those don't come out next week. No, Sonic did come out this week, and it got second place.
When you told me, you sat down and you're like, so our comics we brought home this week were Punchline, Sonic, and Batman. I already knew Batman wasn't going to win, but I voted for Batman.
Detective Comics,
yeah,
by the great Peter J. Tomasi.
But that's
that
fine. That's fine. I don't know what it is. I tell everybody, hi, this is what I like, and none of you pick it.
They trolled you with this on Punchline.
They do.
And let's get into it. I didn't like the fucking issue.
Did not like it at all.
I love Mirka Andolfo. Her artwork was fine. It was great. I like her indie stuff a lot more because she can let loose on her style and on the designs. When you're working for someone like Marvel or DC, you have to follow certain
parameters,
guidelines. Yeah, especially. And for Mirka's, it's a great looking comic. I like her design of the Joker, which is different than what you traditionally see. The story itself, I think it was a mess. I don't think it made her more appealing.
I think it made her less appealing.
We're going to go into spoilers here. Punchline is a podcaster that is influencing Gotham. She's using
world.
Political type of strategies to make herself a bigger victim in front of all of these people as she's going down. I guess she's going into court or wherever for her crimes during the Joker War arc. And someone like Cullen Rowe seems to be falling into that trap, and at least listening to a lot of those tapes. We had mentioned earlier about Harper Rowe returning. They come back in this issue, and it does set up, at least to me, Harper being Punchline's main nemesis in the next arc as opposed to Harley or Batman.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really follow Punchline enough. I didn't realize she was just a teenager or she's extremely young.
I thought she was in college.
So she was in high school when she met the Joker.
During the TV broadcasting?
Yeah,
maybe.
Anyway, very, very young, compared to Harley. I thought she was much older, especially by the way they draw her and depict her. And, they mentioned, or you've talked to me about the character and how the mindset is, she's not like Harley where she's just following the Joker. She's trying to kind of be the Joker, be, his right hand. And she's very intelligent in these different ways. So I just wasn't expecting somebody as young as she was. But I thought they tried really hard to make her cool by saying, and she's got a podcast and she's playing the victim. And, when she's in court and she's like, well, I didn't really kill anybody. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you killed a lot of people, Punchline. I'm pretty sure I saw you kill a lot of people in Joker War. Like a lot of them. And, then she gets this giant following of people. And I guess the book just feels like it's trying to be very political and say, this is what the internet does. This is what happens when, you have a following of people who don't really look into things and just say, yeah, I like this person because I know a lot about them. Or because I feel like I know a lot about them. And just all around, I guess the easiest way I can say it is it just felt like the book was trying hard.
It didn't, it was very unfocused for sure. I think it was not. It was trying to juggle all these different things. You got Harper Rowe, you got Cullen, you've also got this message about the political type of things they're trying to do, how she's using social media to influence Gotham at large. but it wasn't telling us a whole lot about Punchline herself. Yes, you got that origin to her first encounter with the Joker, and that in itself, I think, was kind of shallow. I don't think it was deep at all. Batman comes in and saves the day, and it wasn't impactful in any way. This was not the mad love issue that we were hoping that it would be. And I know it did well at the comic shop. A lot of people bought it up. People were trying to add it to their subscription, but it is just a one-shot. So I think we are going to get that miniseries or ongoing next year at some point with how popular she's been, at least with how she's been selling. I think people do want to know more about her, but I'm reading more about her and I'm not getting into it.
Yeah.
I don't think she's that interesting. I want to learn more about, as we said last week, Ghostmaker. That's a more interesting clown hunter right now. Not while I'm not crazy about him, he's still more interesting than Punchline. But I don't know. I keep waiting and I keep seeing, but I'm not seeing the appeal.
No, me either. And again, maybe they're just targeting a much younger audience for her. And we're not, because I'm old. But yeah, and especially opening the book of like, I didn't go looking for the Joker. He found me. Like Harley always says, okay, well, you're not Harley. Like do something different. Like this did not appeal me. You're not appealing to me by saying these things.
Was it a slap in the face when she was doing the same Alex Ross pose with the Joker?
Yes. Why?
That to me, I'm like, what the fuck is happening here? Why would they even try to emulate a classic pose between Joker and Harley and input Punchline into it? Maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe I'm a dumbass. I did not see the context of that panel at all.
They're like, you're gonna like her. She is like Harley.
And that maybe that's them saying that she also fell for the Joker like Harley. I don't know. I don't
but then
think
we didn't see that
clever
throughout, right? The only really interaction I saw them have is she went crazy. She tried to kill the Joker, and he's like, maybe we can work together. And then they were laughing. Like, that was it. I didn't, it wasn't like, and maybe it would have benefited better from being 2 issues or make it an oversized issue like Mad Love was, right? Really invest in these characters. And they just tried to cram a whole bunch of stuff. Like, here's the setup for her ongoing. Here, it was very rushed.
All set up. Absolutely.
Right. It was very rushed. Even I didn't really like Harper and her brother in this because they didn't do anything except Harper seemed nervous and uncomfortable. You have Leslie Tompkins, who I usually like, and
she was cool in this. I liked her.
Yeah, but I don't know.
She was the best part of this fucking book.
Punchline beat her at a mental game, and I don't foresee that as something that Leslie would do, because she's like, I'm so glad you said I was sane, because otherwise nobody would have listened to me. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So many things that I did not like about it.
That's all I have to say about Punchline number 1. If you have enjoyed her arc and her character in the Joker War, you will probably like this one-shot. If you are like us and have been finding that the character has been lacking a lot of that story, then you should probably pass on this one-shot. This does not get me excited for the miniseries. It will really heavily depend on who's writing that series. And we'll go from there. But otherwise, you can always vote on what we cover each Wednesday morning. Go on to Twitter @ReasonsI'mBroke. On our new comic book day post, which we usually put up around 8 a.m., you can see the choices for what we will cover right here on next week's episode.
Keep in mind, I do not like Punchline nor Sonic.
You should start saying the things you want them to vote that you don't like.
Okay. Batman, A Man Among Ye. I don't like those. No, not at Saga. Nope, don't like Saga.
So definitely don't vote for those.
No, don't.
All right, let's head into the final part of today's episode. It is the Broquette Block, what Palpa Kelly and I have been doing this week.
For me, it's a pretty standard week. Busiest week in my store's history. It was wild. I'm pretty sure I don't remember much of the last week. I mean, you can tell how exhausted I was when I would get home and just like pass out and that would be it. So, really, really proud of my team. Even though we were as busy as we were still fast out the window in the Southeast, right? Which is really exciting. Again, out of 880 stores. Hair flip, right? Not bragging or anything, but here we are. So yeah, I mean, it was great. It's one of those weeks that you get through and it was like so challenging and you get to the other side of it and you're like, holy shit, like that was like, we did a great job, right? We all worked together and we did this great thing. So, from a business standpoint, that was it. From a school standpoint, I have like 20 days left of school, 21 days left, something like that. So very excited near the end. But from a personal standpoint, I found matte fingernail polish top coat. So my nails been looking great all weekend because I've always wanted matte fingernails. So there we go. Now y'all know, if you have women in your life who always look at matte fingernail polish and say, I wish I could have that, you just buy a top coat.
We've had a very similar couple of weeks as well. 2 weeks ago was our biggest sales week in all of 2020.
It's amazing.
And I think I had mentioned last week that, a lot of that has to do with the new Pokemon set that came out, a lot of comic books releasing recently, but you know what? We'll take it however we can, especially this year where not everyone is fortunate enough to have a job to work at or to have a business to run. So especially comic shops in this very industry, you know, how many comic and game shops have gone under during COVID. So we'll take it. I know I'm grateful for that, especially, and heading into the holiday season, it looks like it's going to be a busy one for us as well. We're planning a store rearrangement. It's something we've been wanting to do, especially with the back issues, to add another section of back issues into our bins, and that's going to take a lot of rearranging, but also the front of the store where we can feature more merchandise, since that's a very traffic heavy, yes, it's a small store, but that's a section of the store that everyone always takes a hard left on, right where the pops are, and anything that's there gets a lot of eyeballs on it. So right before the holidays, we're going to do that rearrangement. We're going to move into a new register system, which, I'm kicking and stomping my feet about, but you know, it's something that's I am going to have to accept, and that's what we're going to use moving forward. So that we're going to be moving into. We've already started to use it for our product check-in, and I'm learning it, and I get frustrated that I don't learn it all 100% without making mistakes, because that's how I've been doing. I make mistakes on other things, but when I know the program, I feel like I have a lot of control over it. And when I don't have control over something new, it gets me very uneasy. So that's kind of where my process is going into. Then I had kicked and screamed about not doing this right before the holidays, but that's what we're doing. So it is what it is. I'll figure it out by the end of the month. We'll see what happens. And the podcast itself has had the best year in its history, in our it's going to be 9 years next year. So since 2012, 8-year history, and then we'll celebrate 10 years in 2022. And it's been an awesome one. I think a lot of that has been, yes, the COVID closures where a lot of people suddenly discovered podcasts. Our social media networks have never been as big as they are now. So it's a lot of people discovering, this account that also posts this DC stuff or this comic book stuff also has a weekly podcast. What's a podcast? You know, it's a lot of that discoverability, which is great. And obviously the Snyder Cut roundtables have definitely helped too. So a little bit of everything is finally starting to build into everything that is the show. So that's encouraging. That's great. The positivity, the positive words we hear on Instagram and on Twitter about the podcast is great fuel. I think that's the most important thing, more than numbers, is seeing the interaction, seeing the feedback, and catering to our Brokehead core members, even if no matter how large or small that audience is, because as we've said before, if we had stopped, we would have stopped in 2012 if I was worried about the audience size. It's about doing this for fun. It's about the hobby. It's about having a creative outlet for myself and celebrating this hobby with everyone out there and with yourself.
You also finally got to watch a movie that you have been talking about and wanting to watch forever, that is Captain Phillips.
I've seen years of memes of I am the captain now. Look at me. Look at me. And I love that meme. I saw that in the trailer, they had that line and it hyped me for that actor, for the movie itself. And finally, that meme came back again with Pennsylvania and Florida with Look at Me.
Georgia.
Was it Georgia?
Yeah,
I thought it was Pennsylvania.
I am the swing state now.
Exactly, looking at Florida. Georgia. And I'm like, I got to see this fucking movie. I keep seeing this fucking meme and it's amazing. I got to finally see it. So I rented it on Vudu. You and I watched it in the span of 2 days. I think it was a 2.5, almost 3 hour movie. And most of it takes place in the little tugboat. But yeah, I finally saw it. Tom Hanks stars in it. And I've read all about how the crew in real life, it's all based on true events. The crew in real life were like, they made Tom Hanks to be like this hero. But in real life, he wasn't this hero. He ignored orders to not get that close to Somalia where the pirates were. And what'd you think of this pirate movie?
It's not a pirate movie. So I saw the first half of it. The second half, I fell asleep very early on because I was like, do I stay up an hour or do I get my sleep? And I think I had to be up at 3:30 the next day. So I ended up falling asleep. Sleep often wins. So I enjoyed the first half. I thought that it was done well. I thought the acting was pretty great. of course, very suspenseful, right? Will they find them? What's going on? Everybody screaming at each other. But yeah, I really enjoyed, what I saw of it. It was nice to see that actor who played the main, not pirate.
Somalian pirate?
The main guy was actually nominated for some awards for that performance. And yeah, I thought he did a great job.
I know you were worried that I had hyped up that moment so much in my head, but it was great in the movie.
Fine,
it was cool.
Well, except he didn't deliver it quite like you and I always quote it.
No.
It was a little more understated than that. But yeah, I will continue using the meme, and I think it's hilarious.
Well, the guy that made up for that understatement was the main, other second in command pirate who bug-eyed fucking...
Who just screamed all the time.
All the time. Stop touching that! He's got a knife! Just pointing his fucking machine gun right at him. And these guys, it was like Home Alone on a ship in the first half of it, where they're setting up these little traps for the pirates.
Right.
It was cool. I like the movie. It's one of those, though, where I'm glad I rented it and didn't buy it. I think I could have bought it for an extra $5 or whatever, but I'm like, I'll save the money and just rent it. And it's a movie I'm not going to see again anytime soon. But I really enjoyed Captain Phillips just for the pirates.
I watched the Netflix movie Holiday. I did see that one. It's one of their, not really a Christmas movie. I mean, it has Christmas in it, but not really a Christmas movie. Really, really cute. Except they were trying very hard to be edgy and more adult because they were saying fuck all over the place. And I was like, okay, this probably wasn't necessary. But I did watch it. It was cute. So if you're looking for a chick flick, that's a good one. The hand job jokes and all of that.
Yeah. It was definitely, I will say, like you mentioned, it was edgier. I know I was like, oh, this doesn't seem too bad. It's trying really hard to be funny or whatever, but it sounds like it was also trying to appeal to couples to maybe the guys will kind of like some of these jokes. And at some points I'm like, oh, that's all right. That's kind of funny. But for the most part, yeah, it does seem like a Christmas romance.
Yeah. One part that I found really humorous and kind of different from what you normally see. So of course the whole thing is the guys are mad because the girls are too clingy and assume that if you go to a holiday with them, that you're going to get together or whatever, right? Well, there's a point when the two main characters finally sleep together, she kind of kicks them out of the apartment and she's like, okay, bye, see you later. And later he's complaining to his friend and he's like, and she just kicked me out without giving me coffee, kind of taking on that role that they complain that women always do. So that was kind of funny that, they were talking about it. And then his friend had made out with a mom with 4 kids at a party, and he's like, and she hasn't even called me and so yeah, those moments were funny. I mean, it was it was different. Do I feel like they got the formula perfect? No, but it was different enough that it was a fun night off movie.
The last thing that did happen this week, did I talk about Vivid Voltage last week and how the frenzy that is?
I don't think so.
I don't think it had released at that point yet. We had done the pre-release boxes. And I don't know how bad it's been for Bobby, who also works at a game shop, a game specialty store. I'm sure it's been just as crazy for him. But all of the Vivid Voltage is the newest set from Pokemon. And it is a set that has, I'm assuming, been underprinted because of COVID. And obviously not as many shops are ordering these cards because some are closed, some went under, some are no longer running Pokemon. So they're not ordering as many cards. I know my set numbers weren't as high for this set because we're not running Pokemon League. Those players are not coming in every week and buying a couple of packs, or their parents aren't coming in every week and buying some packs. So, I didn't order too heavily on it, but I didn't go super light either. It was more of matching last time's orders, and we still had some Darkness Ablaze booster boxes anyway. But it seems like all of these game manufacturers or warehouses aren't getting as much product in general. It's all going straight to big stores like Target, Walmart's, which we already knew that was going to be their priority moving forward. But specialty stores or local shops like ours get to sell that product early ahead of everyone else, which is fine, I guess. But this Vivid Voltage set, we sold out of completely within a few days of it releasing, 2 days within it releasing. The pre-release boxes, we moved up in price and we still sold out. One of the other stores in Orlando, they still had some of theirs and they're like, yeah, as soon as we priced them up, they stopped selling as quickly. And I'm like, send them over here because they're still buying them over here. So it's doing incredibly well. And some of that I was asking Bobby too. I'm like, a lot of these people coming in are not players. They're not people I've seen before. They're just collectors. What is going on? And he said, you can blame Logan Paul for that. He's a big YouTuber who suddenly decided that he wants to break Pokemon boxes, and all of his little viewers as well are under this impression that the Pikachu VMAX Gigamax is going to be worth a lot, and the Charizard promo and all of it. So they're now all descending on comic shops and trying to get these cards, which on my end, I'm like, all right, well, I sold out. That's great, even when I raised the prices. But I am having some of the kids that I know are regulars coming in, and they're like, when's that new Pokemon set come out? And I'm like, I already sold out. And it's because of the collector. So now the kids or the players that were trying to collect these are not going to find them. And I don't think we're going to get them this holiday season, to be honest with you. And it's a shame, because usually Pokemon does incredibly well, but now these collectors or speculators or eBay flippers have dried up that market, at least in my store. Even the Darkness Ablaze single booster packs, I sold out of completely. And
wow.
I don't know what it is. I don't know. I mean, I guess it is those YouTubers suddenly. Steve Aoki, I love that musician, does great music. He did a video breaking open Pokemon boxes. And I'm like, really? Like, everyone is suddenly getting into this, and I'm hoping that it'll eventually fizzle out, and then we can get back to serving our regular Pokemon players. But in the meantime, it's such a weird time for Pokemon collecting. It's definitely an oddity.
It must be making a comeback somewhere, because they also released new pop sockets for Pokemon. And you got a really cool Bulbasaur pop socket, which was the only one. There were 3 Bulbasaur ones left on the shelf at Target, and no
They must have underordered.
They must have. They must. No, but I'm saying there were no others. Just 3
so
Bulbasaurs.
Only Bulbasaur. See, once again, the benefit of being a Bulbasaur fan. Like, yes, some may argue now that Squirtle's the least popular of the 3, but for years, Bulbasaur was the least popular of those 3 starters, and I would benefit from, oh, great, they still have Bulbasaur, you know?
And you still do.
And I did
so
this, yeah.
I was happy, because originally I didn't think they had it at Target. I found it at Target last night, so picked that up for you. Almost got myself a new Pikachu one, but I didn't want to spend $25.
I appreciate you pointing that out for me. It's a great one. He's got like grass or whatever leaves behind them and a bunch of Bulbasaur on it. I'll take a picture and we'll share it on social media. But anything else happened for you this week?
No, I think that wraps it up. I'm happy this election nonsense is finally over and we can all sleep again.
And that's the most political we'll get right now, aside from Punchline. I have been Deep King Daniel.
And I am Emperor Palp Kelli.
And Brocat Core.
All will be well.
This all goes into the question of who does Palpa Kelli like more between the Joker and Harley Quinn. Obviously, Harley Quinn has her analog. What would you do if James Tynion tried to make a Joker analog? Would you dislike that character more than you dislike Punchline?
A Joker analog?
Or like a copy, just like Punchline is of Harley Quinn.
Oh, yeah, probably I'd dislike him, because he wouldn't be the Joker. He wouldn't be up to that caliber. I don't think. At this point, it would just be a copycat Joker, right? You can't create somebody and be like, oh, it's the new Joker. Like, why? The Joker's still there.
Well, they tried to do that with Harley Quinn, apparently, so I wouldn't put anything past them now.
Well, yeah, but I feel like Harley is definitely different than the Joker, because the Joker is, yes, Harley is very solidified, but not to the same point that Joker is, where he's literally been around since the dawn of time. Like, the only way you can make a copycat Joker and make it work is having the 3 Jokers, and in that case, they're still Jokers, right? Anybody else you create is just going to be a copy of Joker trying to be Joker, and I don't think anybody in their right mind would seriously create a character trying to say, well, he's taking over for the Joker because the Joker's not around.
Well, I feel like that already happened once, but let me ask you something. When you were reading the 3 Jokers with the other, whichever one was the real one or whatever, I feel like it was written to a point where I did not feel like one was a copy of the other or one was lesser than the other. I felt like each one was the Joker, and I thought that was a success of the book.
No, I definitely agree with that. That's my point in saying if you were to try and make an analog of the Joker, it would feel lesser than. Like, the only way you can really do it is say all 3 of these are the Joker.
I remember when this did happen, though, and you hated this character, so that's why.
The Creeper?
Yes.
in
Batman,
I still feel that anger. Yeah, you can't do it.
He was going after Harley Quinn, and he was running. He was created by the Joker Toxin in the animated series, right? And you did not like him at all. You hated him.
Still don't.
So who do you hate more, the Creeper or Punchline?
They're both the same.
You hate them both equally.
Yes.
Exactly. What if they said we get rid of one of them and we'll never use them again?
Oh, really?
Kelli?
I would probably get rid of Punchline.
All right. Gotcha.
Just because I feel like they're trying too hard. And at this point, we're at the point with the Creeper where we all just know he's like funny, silly, and you're just using him to make fun of people. So I would rather get rid of Punchline, but I probably dislike the Creeper more because he creeps me out. I see him, like I see him in my brain right now, and I'm like, ugh. It's all the yellow. You know what? That's what it is. It's all the contrasting colors. Can't do it.
Your most disliked DC character, you think?
Maybe. I feel like there's somebody else that I really don't like that I've probably just blocked from my mind.
No, I don't think there is.
I'm not going to remind you Talia al Ghul.
No,
yeah, I really don't like Talia al Ghul.
I don't think. No, Creeper. Let's talk about the Creeper again.
I don't like the Creeper. I don't know. I feel like there's some Green Lanterns that I don't like Earth Green Lanterns, where I'm like, why? Why did we even do this?
While we're talking about the Al Ghuls, I know this is a longer podcast thing, but we know how Jarro is basically Batman's son, along with Damian. And you haven't been reading Dark Knight's Metal, but he calls Batman dad all the time, and he hugs him. In Dark Knight's Metal, there's a scene where, obviously this is a little bit in the future, the whole crew, they're going through and they're starting to kind of override what the Batman Who Laughs has been doing. And little Jarro, he's still little in this universe, he has a little prison uniform, and he's chained up, and they're making him break rocks with a little hammer. And he says, taking a breather, boss. And Batman says, take a breather, son. Or take a breather, Jarro. And Jarro turns around and he goes, Dad! And he jumps on him and he gives him a little hug. And Batman's like, hello, Jarro. And and he takes him with him and he helps the crew there. And I'm like, little Jarro is absolutely Batman's son. He is Damian's brother. I now want to see his step-grandfather, Ra's al Ghul, interact with Jarro. I want to see the whole family interact and have a little Thanksgiving thing or something.
Ra's al Ghul would not accept Jarro as anything.
He would.
No, he wouldn't.
He's tied into the detective. He would, of course, respect him in some form. He would at least acknowledge him.
You're building this up because that's what you want it to be.
Our part-timer Sean said he would call him the starfish. That's exactly what it would be. It's amazing.
No,
I love it.
No.
Can Damian and Jarro at least be brothers?
I mean, yeah, they can hang out, but right. Ra's al Ghul will not acknowledge that starfish.